Welcome to the STEMIT Learning Program. STEMIT is a program that teaches mathematics, physics, chemistry, and biology. In short, STEM abbreviates science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. This program is available both online and on television. We offer the following: electronic books, PhET simulations, syllabus documents, and special educators. Now, let's see how this program runs with these simulations. Firstly, we will begin by working on building an atom in the periodic table.
Hello everybody, I hope all is fine and we are going to have a wonderful time learning today. In front of us we are having a periodic table, which is basically a properly arranged form of the elements that exist. And here we are having some buckets of protons, neutrons, electrons. We are going to learn how to build up an atom, which will help us understand how atoms of certain elements are made up, which will at the end of the day help us understand the arrangement that have been used to achieve the periodic table. Now, an atom will consist of a nucleus. In here, in this space, we have our nucleus, and in the nucleus we have the non-charged neutrons and we have positively charged protons, and then outside the nucleus we have shells. In the shells we find electrons, and electrons are negatively charged. Now, an atom consists of neutrons, zero charge, protons, positive charge, and electrons. Inside the nucleus, the number of both the neutrons and the protons is called a mass number. And then the number of the protons in an atom or the electrons in an atom is called an atomic number. So let us look at a typical example when trying to build an atom. If we take a neutron and put it in a nucleus, let us say we take 2 neutrons, and then remember in the nucleus we also find protons, and then we take, let's say, 2 protons. Here it is already naming a kind of atom that we are building to be a helium atom. And I said in an atom the number of protons is always equal to the number of electrons. So if we're building an atom, let us also take 2 neutrons and fill in the shells. Now the shells as they are, an atom can have multiple shells, and the way in which electrons are arranged in a shell, we have a maximum of 2 electrons in the first inner shell, and then we have a maximum of 8 electrons in the outer shells. So basically right now this is said to be a neutral atom because we have an equal number of electrons, remember they are negative, and protons, which are positive. So 2 positives and 2 negatives cancel out each other. We have a neutral atom because remember the neutrons do not have a charge, and this will be an atom of an element called helium. So if we are to look at the periodic table, where is helium? Here is helium. Helium, since it is a noble gas, it will be found here in the group of the noble gases, which are the group 8. So let us just add another proton. If we add another proton, you see now we have a charge. It says we have 3 protons, which are 3 positives, and we still have 2 electrons, which is 2 negatives. Therefore, we have +1. It is no longer called an atom, but it is an ion because it is charged. So a charged atom is called an ion. So if we balance the charge and add another electron, you should be aware. We should be aware that the electron that we added positioned itself into another shell because the inner shell can only take 2 electrons. So now it is a neutral atom, no longer an ion, and it is a lithium atom. Lithium is an element and this is its atom. So get into the periodic table. If lithium is right here, now this is as you go down here, as you go down by the columns in a periodic table, these are called the groups. But as you go across with the rows, they are called the periods. Now lithium is in group 1. If it is in group 1, it means it has got only 1 electron in its outermost shell. And then it is in period 2. If it is in period 2, it means it has got 2 shells. Let us keep adjusting. If we are to put another proton, now we are having 4 protons. This is why it is no longer saying a neutral atom, but it is an ion. Remember, now it is charged because there is an equal number of protons and electrons. So if we add another electron, now we have a neutral atom of beryllium. This is beryllium. Beryllium here, remember lithium there was in group 1 because we had 1 electron in the outermost shell. So now we have 2 electrons in the outermost shell. This is why we are in group 2. And then we are still having only 2 electron shells. Therefore, we are still in period 2. This is how you identify where the element will be situated in a periodic table. So basically, what are we saying? In an atom, we have a nucleus. Inside the nucleus, we have got protons, they are positively charged, and neutrons, they have a 0 charge. So the charge of a nucleus will be positive, therefore. And then we have the surrounding shells, and the shells contain electrons. Electrons are negatively charged and they are found rotating in the shells. The first shell will only take a maximum of 2 electrons, while the other shells will take a maximum of 8 electrons. And since when the number of electrons and protons is equal, we are said to be having a neutral atom. But if we take maybe 1 electron and move it, now we have an ion because the number of positives of protons is no longer equal to the number of negatives of the electrons. Therefore, it is an ion and it will be positively charged. Therefore, because now the protons are more than the electrons. Therefore, if we balance it again and set here is the electron, you will find that it is now a neutral atom. Please bear in mind the number of protons will have as the atomic number of an element, and the combination of the number of protons and neutrons will give us a mass number, and we need to balance them and make them 4 as it is. Then we will be having a complete beryllium neutral atom. We'll be having a mass number, which is the number of neutrons plus the number of protons. Then we'll be having an atomic number, which will be the number of protons, or if it is a neutral atom, we'll be having the number of protons or the electrons, and how do we identify where such an atom, if it belongs to what element, where will it be situated in the periodic table? We count the number of electrons in the outermost shell. They will give us the group in which that particular element belongs, and then we count the number of shells it has. It will give us the period in which that particular atom belongs to.
Now let's try and tackle biology by differentiating between the plant cell and the animal cell.
Greetings everybody. On our screen we are looking at the structure of plant cells and animal cells as they would be viewed under a microscope. So what we have here, if we would look closely, we have the plant cell, we have an animal cell. They may be looking different. There may be some similarities there and there in which we are going to look at, and perhaps also discuss a few of the functions of each structures as we see on the screen. Let us please keep in mind that this is not as you will see the structures with a naked eye, but this is what you will be seeing when viewing the cells using a microscope. To start with, we have a plant cell. A plant cell is surrounded towards the external by what is called a cell wall. And if we were to look at the animal cell, there is no cell wall. The cell wall, as an external feature to the plant cell, is made of cellulose, and it is responsible for giving the structure of a plant cell, which looks more or less rectangular as compared to the animal cell, which we may say does not have a particular shape. So there is a cell wall, and then there is no cell wall in the animal cell. Underneath the cell wall in a plant cell, you have a cell membrane, and we also have a cell membrane in the animal cell. Here it is cell membrane or a plasma membrane. And the cell membrane, as it may be discussed, is the one that facilitates the in and out movement of particles into the cells and out of the cell, and it is so called a selective means of transport of the particles that enter cells and leave the cells. We also have a nucleus. Here is a nucleus in an animal cell. In an animal cell, here we have a nucleus, and then also here we have a nucleus in the plant cell. What is the function of the nucleus? The function of the nucleus is that it contains the genetic material. It is responsible to contain the materials that are required for the cells to reproduce. We also have the cytoplasm in a plant cell. We also have the cytoplasm. This is the cytoplasm. Basically, the cytoplasm is this content in which there are all these organelles. The parts that are found inside of the cell membrane are called the organelles. When you have the organelles here, they swim in the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is a liquid close to being gel-like, but is a liquid material in the cells. And also in the animal cell, we also have the cytoplasm. There will be many organelles inside floating about in the cytoplasm, but as a common feature, we have the cytoplasm in both the plant cell and the animal cell. Continuing to that, we have here is labeled chloroplast. This is the chloroplast in a plant cell, and we don't have any chloroplast in the animal cell. The chloroplast in a plant cell, the function is to trap sunlight so that the sunlight will be used by a plant to make food so that it will produce energy. So the animal cell does not have a chloroplast because it does not make its own food, animal consumes other organisms to make food so that they have energy. As animals, we eat, but plants do not eat, they make their own food. By plants being able to make their own food, they are called autotrophs, while the animals not being able to make their own food, they are called heterotrophs. Now, here you have a vacuole. This is a vacuole inside here. This is a large central vacuole, and this is its membrane. This can be called just a vacuole, or it can be called a sep vacuole. And if you look closely in the animal cell, we do not have any sep vacuole. The function of the sep vacuole here, basically in plant cells, it contains watery material that will have salts that the plants need stored in there. Whereas in an animal cell, we do not have a sep vacuole. And the sep vacuole, one of the functions of the sep vacuole in a plant cell is that with water, having more water inside the sep vacuole, it will be taut. It will be very rigid. It gives the cell a rigid structure because of a high content of water in the sep vacuole. So up to now, looking at the simplest that we have compared, we have seen that plant cells have cell wall and cell membrane. Animal cells only have cell membrane. Both cells have the nucleus, and then remember we said the nucleus contains the material necessary for reproduction of the cells. And then the plant cells have got a sep vacuole, whereas the animal cells do not have a sep vacuole. The sep vacuole contains a lot of water and salts that the plant need, and the water in the sep vacuole is also used to give the cell its rigid structure. Now, from there, you can have one of the small particles that may be found inside the cells is that they are called they are the Golgi apparatus, they are called the lysosomes, they are called the ribosomes. These are now the parts of a plant or an animal cell that are used in producing certain types of food. They may not be considered as very basic parts, but these are the parts that are just used to convert foods to the foods that is actually required by the cells to function. One last important part to identify in the cells is what is called the mitochondrion. You see, this is a mitochondrion, and we are also going to look into the animal cell and identify a mitochondrion. This is a mitochondrion. The function of the mitochondrion, this is what is termed the powerhouse of a cell. It is present in both animal and plant cells. This is where energy is produced. This is where energy is produced in the mitochondrion. It is present in both plants and animal cells. So up to now, if we are able to identify chloroplasts, if we are able to identify cytoplasm, if we are able to identify the nucleus, the sep vacuole, the cell membrane, and the cell wall, and be able to differentiate them as to where they exist between plant and the animal cells and their functions, I can consider us to be good as far as we may be required with both the plant and animal cells.
Now let's tackle the question that was posted earlier today online.
Okay, now the questions we've been getting is, one, the significance of group number and the period number, and then what is an ion. We will extend a little bit on the what is an ion and talk things thorough.
let us take in particular the very beryllium that we've been dealing with. We say the mass number of beryllium would be 9 and the atomic number would be 4. And as an atom, beryllium would say it will be neutral when it has got an equal number of protons and electrons, positives and negatives. It will be ion if it has lost the electrons, being an ion of a 2+. Therefore, what are we saying? Now, the significance of group number. Now, this, since it will be an ion that will be 2+, it would mean it is less electrons, 2 electrons. Therefore, it will remain as a +2. This means it has lost 2 electrons in the outermost shell. Since its atomic number is 4, now that it has lost 2, it means it is remaining with 2 others, meaning it has got only 2 electron shells. In the outermost shell, it had 2 electrons. It has lost them, then it will be remaining with the other 2, and we said the inner shell only takes about 2 electrons. So if we do away with this and do away with this, we are going to be left with beryllium 2+ with only 2 electrons. That is to say, the group number indicates how many electrons an element or atom of it has got in the outermost shell. So this one will be in group 2. That simply says it has got what? It has got 2 electrons in its outermost shell. Now the period indicates the number of shells. 1, 2. Then it will be in period 2. That is basically how we correlate the periodic table to the structure of an atom and what kind of an ion it will be. Talking of the ion, now that it forms a positive ion, it will be called a cation. If it would be forming negative ions, are so called the anions. I hope that will be clear as far as the questions we had got are concerned.
Thank you for watching today, and please contact us on the information below.